Hi, I'm Paul Tursley and this is a demo of PT Multiplane. You can use this script to very quickly turn groups of 2D layers into 3D multiplanes. The file that you download will include a script that needs to be installed this works in CS3 or later. It needs to be installed in scripts, script UI panels folder. If you're using CS3 you might need to create this folder yourself. And the file also contains a test file, a layered Photoshop file, which is what we're going to use in this tutorial. So let's start by importing that. And we're going to import it using the composition cropped layers option. And this is a photo I took on a recent trip to Japan. I cut out each of the layers and then painted that layer out, and then cut out the next layer, painted that out, and so on to create the different layers. And if we go to the window menu, we can select the multiplane script. It's got a dockable UI, so you can drop it anywhere you want it. You've got instructions here, which are pretty much what we're going to go through in this tutorial, and there are links to the page on aescripts.com. So let's just go ahead and hit apply multiplane. If you only want to apply this to specific layers, you should select them before hitting apply multiplane, and then it will only apply it to those selected layers. Otherwise it will apply it to all layers. So it looks like nothing's changed, but if we switch to two views, let's switch this to a custom view, you can see that the layers have been distributed in 3D space. If we look at the position values, you can see they've been distributed between the values specified in the panel here. So for the camera, I'm going to turn off layer transform auto orient, and I'm going to turn off orient towards point of interest. And this just means that I can animate just the position. I don't have to worry about there being a point of interest to animate. So if I add a keyframe here, then go to the end of the comp and move through the shot, you can now see the multiplane effect that's been applied. So I'm just going to apply a easy ease to those keyframes. You can see the result. So there we have an instant 3D multiplane. And the way the script works is it applies scale expressions to the individual layers, that as you move the layers in Z space, the scale expression compensates, so you can drag the layers in Z space by dragging the blue Z axis arrows, or you can scrub the Z position values in the timeline, and you can see that the composition of the shot remains the same from the camera's original position. So this means you can very easily experiment with the depth and the multiplane effect in your shot, and then watch it back and keep tweaking until you're happy with the result of your multiplane. And when you are happy, you might want to use the bake result button, and what that does is it removes the scale expressions that are applied and turns them back into just regular 3D layers again, so you can then continue to work with them as just normal layers that you're used to. But that's entirely optional. You can leave the multiplane applied if you are going to be going back and changing the, like, you want to carry on experimenting with the depth later. So I'm going to show you one more example, which is you don't just have to, it's not just for layered Photoshop files. You can use this on any kind of 2D layers, layered Illustrator files, or 2D solids, or text layers, or shape layers that you've created in After Effects. In this example we're going to use a text layer. So I've already created a camera just to save some time, and I'm going to create a text layer, and I'm going to use another script. I'm going to use one of NAB's scripts called Decomposed Text, and what this does, you can find this script on aescripts.com in the NAB script section, and what this does is it will break a layer of text up so that each character gets its own layer. So you can see here we now have a separate text layer for each character. I'm going to delete the original text layer, and I'm going to apply the multiplane effect. So each time you hit apply multiplane, you'll get a new default camera at the default location that will show you the original composition of the shot. But if you've already been working with the camera, you can quite happily delete the new cameras that are created. So we can see it's not great. There's not much separation between the layers, and also you can see that by default the script will arrange the layers so the top layer is at the front and the bottom through to the bottom layer being at the back. But in this case, that's not what I want. I actually want them to be just randomly distributed. So there's this random distribution checkbox. So I'm going to turn that on, and then also to increase the separation between these layers, I'm going to increase this back value to 10,000. So let's apply the multiplane again and delete the camera that was created. And now you can see the layers have been distributed randomly in the Z axis, and we've got much more separation here between the layers. So the next thing I'm going to show you is how to stitch more than one of these multiplanes together. So maybe you're trying to recreate a storyboard, and you want, when you get to a certain point, you now want to be onto frame 2 of the storyboard, in which case maybe you've imported another layered Photoshop file and you want to hit that point here where the camera stopped. So in this case I'm not going to import another a layered Photoshop file. I'm going to create another comp. So I'm going to create another text layer, and run the Decomposed Text script again. And apply multiplane again, but this time I'm going to turn off random distribution. And we can see now, if we animate this camera, that the layers have been distributed in 3D space. So this is what we want to see when the camera, this camera, gets to this point in this composition. The camera in here is not actually important, because what we're going to do is we're going to drop this other comp into our main comp, and we're going to make it a 3D layer and collapse it, which means it ignores the camera in the pre-comp and then acts as if the 3D layers, and uses the camera in this comp and acts as if the layers in the pre-comp are still 3D layers. So what we need to do, and this technique only works if you do turn off the layer transform auto orient to off, because what we need to do is we need to copy the position and any rotation values. We've only got Y rotation in this case. We need to paste those into the composition that we've brought in. And one last thing is we need to change the anchor point of the comp to an inverted value of the camera zoom. So we see the camera zoom here, so we'll copy that and we'll paste a negative version of that value into the pre-comp. And now you can see this pre-comp is now perfectly aligned with the camera when it's at this point on its animation path. And you can see here now the composition of this is correct from this camera position, but as the camera continues to move through, you can see the layers are still distributed in 3D space. So let's preview the result of that. We can actually see those layers are just kind of peeking through a bit earlier here, but if I kind of go to a point where they disappear off frame, I can trim this pre-comp to hide them. So let's see the result. So there you go. That's how to stitch two multiplanes, or many more multiplanes together, to build up your sequence. So that's the end of the tutorial. So thanks for watching.